Namaste everyone here at BookTube. Welcome to my channel Hamsavahini Vajra Astra. I'm Ohana. In today's video, I'm going to share all the books that I have been collecting over the past few months and I plan to read by the end of this year, 2020. Now, I have categorized all these books into reading lists, the inspiration of which I have been drawing from the reading rushes, the TBRs, the reading challenges, the literary movements which have been inspired by global causes, etc. Now, before I proceed with this video, I'd like to mention that I do have a habit of rambling, and so I have penned down all my thoughts in these few pages, which I'll be referring to frequently. Now, the first reading list that I have put together is Jane Austen in the Georgian era. Now, this reading list has been inspired by the July Jane Austen Challenge, which I am a participant of as well. So, this particular challenge has been hosted by Katie from Books&Things and Marissa from BlantanlyBookish. Now, this is an annual challenge, and we have participants who are contributing or participating from all across the globe, and it's a wonderful challenge. I have been loving the challenge so far. There are brilliant options and it's been put together in a beautiful way. Every year there is always fresh content, fresh insight, fresh perspective, which we find, and it's creatively put together. So we have everything from fashion to music to the lifestyle in the Georgian era to characters and character analysis of Jane Austen novels and much more. So I would strongly recommend this challenge to anyone who loves Jane Austen's work or loves Jane Austen herself and wants to know more about Jane Austen. Now, the books that I'm going to show over here are of Jane Austen. However, they are not pertaining to the challenge because the July challenge has different books and these books would be different. Now, amongst the non-fiction books which I have collected, the first book that I have collected is, or I have added to my collection, is 101 Things You Didn't Know About Jane Austen. Now, this book has been written by Patrice Hannon, and Patrice Hannon is originally from New Jersey, now living in New York. She did her BA in English from St. Peter's College and PhD in English from Rutgers University. She teaches Jane Austen novels and a great other works from other writers at several colleges. Patrice was invited at the Morgan's Library to initiate the museum's first reading initiative or first reading group in conjunction with its exhibition called A Woman's Wit, Jane Austen's Life and Legacy. She's also published a number of essays on Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, Oscar Wilde and Tolkien's, in addition to the short fiction which she has written. And she is prominently and a featured speaker. She's prominently a member and a featured speaker of the Jane Austen Society of North America, or which is popularly known as JASNA. And this book which I'm holding right now, which is 101 Things You Didn't Know About Jane Austen, has won the Jane Austen Regency World Award under the category Best Regency Know-How Book, which has been presented by Jane Austen Center at Bath. So hopefully I should be able to complete this book by the end of this year. There is another book which has been written by the same author, which reads as Dear Jane Austen, A Heroine's Guide to Life and Love, which I plan to read next year. Now, the next book which I have added to my collection is The Wicked Wit of Jane Austen by Dominic Enright. Now, Dominic Enright is a freelance writer and an editor. This book is a collection of short excerpts from Jane Austen's novels bunched into exquisite bouquets. For example, I just read out a couple of things. Another Stupid Party, Balls, Gowns, and Other Fashions. From here, I'll just read out something from Catherine. So it reads as, I remember I met Miss Dudley last spring with Lady Amyot at Ranelagh, and she had such a frightful cap on that I have never been able to bear any of them since. So these are very short, witty excerpts which have been put together, and I hope I have a lot of fun reading or leafing through this book. The third book which I've added to my collection is Jane Austen, a biography by Carol Shields. Now, a note about the author. Carol Ann Shields is an American-born Canadian novelist. This work of hers has won the Charles Taylor Prize for Literary Nonfiction in April 2002. It's lucidly written, and although there is reference to Claire Tomlin's biography of Jane Austen, which I'm currently reading for the July Jane Austen Challenge, yet this book is simpler compared to Claire Tomlin's biography and delves with a different perspective altogether. So I hope I'll be able to enjoy this book. I have started reading it, and there was a section, it begins with a section called The Politics of Glance, which I found very interesting. So hopefully I should be able to complete it by the end of this year. The next book which I've added to my collection is by Rebecca Smith, and it reads as Jane Austen's Guide to Modern Life's Dilemma. Now, the author is a very interesting person because she happens to be from the ancestral lineage of Jane Austen. She is the great niece of Jane Austen, and she studied history at the University of Southampton. Now she's a teaching fellow in English and creative writing. She was the writer in residence at Jane Austen's House Museum in Shorton, Hampshire. So I'll just read out a bit from the jacket of this book. Is the man I'm dating Mr. Darcy in disguise or simply a prat? It's been 2 centuries since Jane Austen penned her famous novels, yet her adroit observations on the social landscape and profound insights into human nature are as relevant now as they were in her time. If only those of us in need of some good advice today had the opportunity to sit down and tap even a few drops from Austen's great reservoirs of wisdom, well, now we do. So this is written on the jacket, and I believe it's going to be a wonderful read, and I hope I'll be able to complete it by the end of this year. The last non-fiction work of Jane Austen, which has been written about Jane Austen, is Jane Austen, A Secret Radical by Helena Kelly. Now, Helena Kelly is an author who resides currently at Oxford. The interesting thing about her is that she grew up in North Kent, and it's a place or an area which is just down the road where Charles Dickens used to live. So, of course, this does not have any relevance, but she has made wonderful references of radical works or radical thought in Jane Austen, and she's portrayed how Jane Austen was quite a radical thinker herself. So I'll just read out a bit from the jacket of the cover. Almost everything we think we know about Jane Austen is wrong. Her novels don't confine themselves to grand houses, and they were not written purely for readers' enjoyment. She writes about serious subjects, and her books are deeply subversive. We just don't read her properly, and we haven't been reading her properly for 200 years. Jane Austen, The Secret Radical, puts that right. In her first brilliantly original book, Austen expert Helena Kelly introduces readers to a passionate woman living in an age of revolution. To a writer who used what was regarded as the lightest of literary genres, the novel, to grapple with the weightiest of subjects, feminism, slavery, abuse, the treatment of the poor, the power of the church, even evolution at a time, and in a place when to write about such things was directly akin to treason. Uncovering a radical, spirited, and politically engaged woman, this book will encourage Austen fans to read her all over again. So, I hope I'll be able to complete this book again, and as soon as I complete it, because it looks like an interesting read, I will be back with a book review. Now, these are a few of the book collections which I have made, which are retellings. Now, Kelly from Books&Things had requested if there were further retellings which we could discover as well. So, of course, this is not something which I've discovered, but this is something which had been recommended from her channel, Katie from Books&Things. So, this is Confessions of a Jane Austen Addict by Laurie Vieira Rigler. So, it's a collection of retellings, and I'll just read out from the back cover. It reads as, sassy, smart, and suddenly single, Courtney Stone is a typical modern LA girl. This is until she wakes up in one morning in Regency, England, in the body of Jane Mansfield. At first she thinks she must be dreaming. Maybe she's read all the Jane Austen books a few too many times, but as time goes on, she finds there is a lot she needs to get to grips. A new accent, a new body, a wicked new mother, and most excitingly, a new man in her life, the dashing, dishy Charles Edgeworth. But is he a Darcy, a Wickham, or merely a confusing distraction? As Courtney trips through the social minefield of life in Jane Austen's England, she wonders, will she ever get her 21st century West Coast life back? And does she even want to? So this is going to be a very good read. Hopefully I should be able to complete it by the end of this year. Now, the next retelling, which is a Pride and Prejudice, is Unmarriageable by Sonia Kamal. I did come across this book before I started with the Jane Austen challenge, and although I had, as you can see, I've already started reading this. However, because I had chosen Austenistan for my Jane Austen challenge, so I had to leave out this book and start with Austenistan, which I've completed. So I will get back to this book within a few days. Now I'll just read about this story from the back of the cover. When Alice's family is invited to the wedding of the century in their town, her mother, the indomitable Mrs. Binat, excitedly coaches her 5 unmarried daughters on the art of husband hunting. Alice's elder sister, Jenna, quickly catches the eye of a wealthy entrepreneur, but his friend, Valentine Darcy, doesn't conceal his unfavorable opinion of the Binat family. As the days of lavish festivities continue, the Binats wait breathlessly to see if Jenna will land a proposal, and Alice realizes that Darcy's brusqueness hides a very different man to the one she judged at first sight. So it's a witty delight that will leave you wishing for more. That's been written by New York Journal of Books. It's a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. So it's going to be a wonderful read, and I believe it's going to be hilarious as well. So let's see if I will be able to complete this book. I believe there is another participant who is currently reading this book for the July Jane Austen challenge. So I will be looking forward for her little take on this book as well. Now, the other retelling which I have discovered is Northanger Abbey, which is by Val McDermid. Strangely, this happens to be a murder mystery. I'll just read out from the back of this book. One ordinary girl in search of an extraordinary life. Kat Morland is waiting for something to happen in her life, and nothing ever happens in Pidley Valley, Dorset. So when her wealthy neighbours whisk her up to Edinburgh Festival for the Highland Ball, Kat falls into the arms of a young lawyer, Henry Tilney, and before she knows, she is on her way to stay at the family's Gothic estate or castle. Even the name Northanger Abbey sends shivers down her spine. Turrets and creaking doors there may be, but in the depths of the Scottish borders, Kat is isolated from the outside world, with no phone signal, no internet, and with a family who are not quite as they seem. Is real life about to become more terrifying than the world of her imagination? This is going to be very intriguing, and I'll let you know about the story as soon as I complete this book. There is another interesting book which I found, which is talking about Jane Austen in Baghdad. Now, this particular book has been written by B. Rowlett and Matt Witt, and it's in the form of letters. So it's about these two ladies who are from different and diverse culture, who are chatting with each other, or who are writing letters through emails about Jane Austen, and how Jane Austen, or the love of Jane Austen, gets them to cross all difficulties to get to resolve each other's problems. So I'll just read out a couple of words from the back of this book. It reads as follows. Would you brave gun-toting militias for a cut and a blow-dry? May is a tough-talking, hard-smoking lecturer in English. She is also an Iraqi living in Baghdad, dodging bullets before breakfast, bargaining for high heels in bombed-out bazaars, and battling through blockades to teach her class of Jane Austen-studying girls. B, on the other hand, is a London mum of 3, busy fighting off PTA meetings and chicken pox and dealing with dead cats, and generally juggling work and family while squabbling with her globe-trotting husband over socks he leaves lying around the house. They should have nothing in common, but when a simple email brings them together, they discover a friendship that overcomes all their differences of culture, religion, and age, and between the grenades, the gossips, the jokes, and the secrets, they hatch an ingenious plan to escape May, or help May to escape Baghdad. This is a wonderful read. It's in the form of letters, and hopefully I will enjoy this particular book. and I will get back to you with a book review on this as soon as I complete it. Now, the last retelling which I found was Heartstrings and Other Breakable Things by Jacqueline Frankins. This is a retelling of Mansfield, which I found very interesting because Mansfield Park is the book which I'm reading for the July Jane Austen challenge. So I'll have to go through it and I'll have to let you know, but I will go through it after I finish the challenge, of course. Now I'll just read a bit from the jacket. Mansfield Park, Massachusetts is the last place 17-year-old Eddie Price wants to spend her final summer before college. It's the home of wealthy suburbanites and prima donnas like Eddie's cousins who are determined to distract her from her mother's death with cute boys and Cinderella-style makeovers. Eddie has her own plans and they don't include a Prince Charming. But as Eddie dives into schoolwork and applying for college scholarships, she finds herself drawn to two Mansfield's boys who start vying for her attention. First, there's Sebastian, Eddie's childhood friend and first love. He's sweet, smart, and already has a girlfriend. Then there's Henry, the local bad boy, and the all-round player. He's totally off limits, even if his kisses are chemically addictive. Both boys are trouble. Eddie can't help but get caught between them. Someone's heart is going to break. Now she has just to make sure it isn't hers. So this is going to be an interesting read. Hopefully I should be able to complete this by the end of this year again. The other books which I have collected, or I've just got a copy of, because I didn't have a copy of these books, which is Lady Susan and Other Works by Jane Austen. Jane Austen Persuasion, this is a new book which I just saw across the internet, so I just picked this book up. I haven't read Persuasion, by the way, but I had just not scribbled exactly, I'd just gone through the pages when I was quite young, so hopefully I should be able to read this book. Pride and Prejudice, this is a fresh copy of Pride and Prejudice. I have another copy of Pride and Prejudice, which is almost in tatters, and I've got another graphic novel of Pride and Prejudice, which I'm reading for the challenge. This is another copy of Northanger Abbey, which I have not yet read, but I will be reading. So these are the books that I have collected in the Jane Austen in the Georgian era reading list. There is also another tiny book which I've got. Now this is a very cute little book which gives the summary of all the novels of Jane Austen, all the 6 novels, very beautifully, so I can just pick up any of these, pick up this little book and refer to it when I'm reading a retelling, should I have a doubt. So these are all the books that I've collected and put together in my reading list of Jane Austen in the Georgian era for this particular year, 2020. I hope I'll be able to complete all these books. If you really like any of these books which I have shown, do please get a copy of it. I would also be sharing other books which I've put in different reading lists, which does include African reading list and another reading list which is all about India. So till then, thank you for joining me and I hope you have a happy reading week ahead. Namaste.